So, what do you think of Karl Marx? I think he is a pinko bastard. I think his ideas just about destroyed the whole world. I think communism and Marxism are evil, pure evil. Wow, you have a very strong feelings about this issue. Yes, I do. Communism and socialism are always anti-religion, and anti-God, and anti-free markets, and most importantly, anti-freedom. Communism violates the ability of men and women to be free from external control. Communism is slavery. Communism is a blight upon human history. When did you come to believe these ideas? That greatest of American presidents, Ronald Reagan, helped me learn these important truths. Fair enough. So why did you ask me about Karl Marx? Because I want to talk about the economy, and I just wanted to see how open to this discussion you can be. I'm open to having a discussion about economy. I just don't see what that has to do with my hatred of Karl Marx. Okay. We won't discuss Karl Marx. But I do have another question. Yes. I'm all ears. What do you think about the Wall Street executives who make billions of dollars in taxpayer-subsidized bonuses, and what do you think about the government's use of taxpayers' monies to bail out the big banks, and what do you think about the government's efforts to cover up all of the fraud and illegal activity that has occurred over the past 40 years throughout the financial industry, and what do you think about a Federal Reserve System whose policies must, by their very nature, increase the wealth of the richest Americans, while at the same time increasing the sheer numbers of poor and desperate American workers? I think it is pure evil. I think it is inexcusable and criminal, and that the whole thing stinks, and that it represents the very worst side of humanity. So do I really bad stuff. And do you also think that the rules of society favor the wealthy? Of course. What, do you think I'm a moron? The poor always get screwed, and it is the rich who always come out on top. The entire system is tilted in favor of the wealthy, because the laws and rules are made by the wealthy. The system is created to fleece the middle class and the poor, while the rich just get richer. I have to say, I do not disagree with your assessment. Do you think that the members of the shrinking middle class and the poor have a right to be angry, and have a right to demand equal treatment under the law, and have the right to expect that the government should always look out for the little guy instead of defending the greed and exploitations of them by the wealthy guys? Of course. That is what democracy was meant to be all about. When the founders of this great land imagined a democratic republic, they did not simply imagine a place in which people voted for representatives. They imagined a place in which fairness and community-mindedness and egalitarian ideals reigned supreme. Their ideal was an Enlightenment ideal, a nation based upon the most humane and righteous elements of both Enlightenment and deist thinking. They would be shocked and horrified to see what has happened to their America. They would be deeply saddened to see how the ideals of individual liberty and freedom have been perverted by self-serving moneyed interests. Interests that hide behind the rhetoric of freedom as a way to justify their unbounded greed and theft from the majority of the nation's citizens. And you hate Karl Marx? Yes. He is a pinko bastard. I suggest you reread your Karl Marx. I suggest you ignore the bull that people like Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh spew, and that you take some time to understand what it is that Marx believed. And look, I'm not advocating for communism as a form of government. Clearly we know from history that any ideology can be, and usually is, twisted by those in power as a way to solidify their own authority. Just as many socialist and communist leaders became authoritarian tyrants, so too have dictators arisen in so-called democracies. So what is your point? My point is that we exist in a country in which class struggle is a reality. Call it whatever name you want to call it, but when the rich get richer, when the poor get poorer, when all of the laws and institutions are slanted in favor of the wealthy, when 1% of the people control close to 30% of the money, when those who cannot afford a lawyer rot in jail, while those who can sip champagne in freedom. In a society so tilted in favor of wealth, the ideas espoused by men like Karl Marx resonate, but Marx was an evil demagogue and his ideas nearly destroyed the world. No. Men of greed and ruthlessness, who also possess political power, are the ones who destroy the world, regardless of ideology. And here in the United States, it is becoming increasingly obvious that it is the men of wealth who rule the nation. And God help us all when their financial ruthlessness and callousness expresses itself in more overt and tyrannical ways. I mean, we already have 42 million people on food stamps in this country. In 10 years the government will be supporting closer to 100 million poor and hungry citizens. What happens to these people if and when the wealthy decide to turn off the supports? What are you saying? I'm saying this. Karl Marx spoke about the exploitation of the workers and of the poor. On a most basic level, you and he philosophically agree. I'm also saying that, when it comes to big government, any leaders can become corrupted and dictatorial. Finally, I'm saying this. Do not count on the American government and on the wealthy in America to save you if you are struggling. You need to find ways to become increasingly self-sufficient and community-oriented in order to provide for your family and to create hope and optimism for the future. Do not get bogged down in ideological dogma. Think small, think local, and plan well for the future. Well, that all makes sense to me. But I still hate Karl Marx. It is certainly your right to do so.